This deck is only 3 years old and already it's starting to fall apart on us. And that's why today we're gonna be replacing it to this brand new, beautiful Trex deck. First, we have to go get the material. One of the questions that you guys ask a lot, and for good reason, is how do we make money while we're on the road? Well, the truth is it's all kinds of ways, and that's kind of the beautiful thing about living on the road is there's always money to be made. Howdy. So since quitting Frito-Lay, one of the really out there jobs that we've done to keep this life on the road going is that I worked as an actor.
Quiet on set, please.
And I know you might be wondering, how does that possibly tie into me building a Trex deck on top of my bus? If you go to trex.com/academy, you'll see this smiling face right here. Hi, and welcome to Trex Academy, where you can learn everything you need to know about building a deck. All right, there's our stuff. So now we're full circle, I guess. Working with Trex once again, but this time to update our very worn down wood deck on top of our bus. Fortunately for us, they come in 16 footers, so we're gonna have to cut them in half first. So one of the reasons that we're switching from wood is because if you think about how harsh what we're doing is to wood decking, we're literally traveling all over the US, being in all kinds of crazy environments, basically hurricane force winds every time we drive our bus. And I'm gonna show you guys what that looks like even after just a couple years. One of the other really great things about Trex is it's made out of recycled material. In fact, Trex is one of the, if not the biggest recycler of plastic bags in America. Okay, I'm gonna finish getting the rest of these cut up and then I'll get back to the job thing I was talking about before. We have our deck boards. Let's keep moving. We're gonna be picking up some steel. That is the one downside to Trex, is that it can't span as far as wood. All right, we're back at the bus. So the whole story with Trex though is I 100% thought it was a scam, straight up. I mean, I was so sure that it was a scam. I mean, because that stuff doesn't like happen in real life, does it? Well, apparently it does. So once we found out that it was actually official, we booked 2 round-trip tickets to Winchester, Virginia to have our auditions. We showed up, very unprofessionally, mind you. I had like this awful super long hair and my beard looked way worse than it even does right now, believe it or not. We tried our best and it's all we could do. We have a couple more things that we need, but unfortunately the deck boards that we need, they sent the wrong ones. So we're playing the waiting game again. So we have all of our metal prepped and painted. And the next step, which I'll put right here, right there, is gonna be that we need to remove our old wooden deck. Let's go check it out. Welcome to the rooftop deck. It's become a bit of a hazard, if I'm being honest. I'll show you what I mean. You can tell all of this is starting to wear off, all of that like Thompson seal stuff, which, I mean, that's a huge bummer. We've resurfaced this thing 3 times. Like the whole deal. We took it all off, sanded it back down, made sure to apply it exactly to the specifications and the right temperature, and this is happening once again. I didn't even show you the worst part though. Check this out. Right there. That's the worst part. This thing is warped so badly that it pulled the screws out of the metal. It's all cupping as well. So that's why we're switching to Trex. Out with the old, in with the new. Here comes the best part. Here's our graveyard. And then here are most of our new Trex boards that are gonna be going up. Before we can put those deck boards up, we have to make sure we get some extra support. So let's go ahead and get all of these installed between the ones that we already have. So this is our current situation. We're gonna be adding the supports between all the supports that are already here, and we need to make sure that it's a maximum of 16" on center to support the Trex boards we're using. And since we already have all these supports in place, all we need to secure it together is some stainless steel hardware. We have a bolt, washer, locking washer, and a nut. Okay, so back to the story I was talking about earlier. I finally got the email that I had been accepted for the part, and I was gonna be officially working as an actor for Trex. And so we're gonna be showing you how to remove and replace existing deck boards. Like, how does that even happen? How is that real life? And why me? Because of that, we picked up in Illinois, where I just finished building a client build, and we moved to Georgia, and then eventually made our way up to Virginia, where we spent the rest of our summer working as an actor, making really good money and being part of a creative process that was equal parts fun and incredibly stressful. I have 2 more of these cross members to install. The next time I see you, we're gonna be putting down Trex boards. See you in a couple days. Great news, we got our last couple deck boards, so we are ready to go. We're gonna have a brand new Trex deck today. The first thing we're really gonna be doing is adding this butyl tape to most of our cross structure supports. And that's because we have some of these supports that have a bunch of holes in them. And so there's a lot of risk that there could be rain that goes down, gets trapped, and then rusts the inside of these steel structures out. So as the screws go down through the deck board and into the metal, there'll be something to keep the water from flowing. This step isn't necessary, and usually you'd actually use a joist tape if you wanted to do this, but because I already had holes in the metal, I thought this would be a really good way to keep water from getting inside. Next step is to start putting deck boards down. A few things up front now that we're really getting into it. We're gonna be using some stuff that's a little bit different because we don't have a wood deck. One of the things that we're gonna be using, again, that you don't have to use, I really like these hidden fasteners from Trex. They come with a built-in spacer. So as we install the deck boards, they have a groove in between them. And then I'll use these with metal tapping screws to screw into our square tubing. That's gonna make sure that we have that 1/4 inch gap between all of our boards, and it's gonna have a hidden fastener, which is gonna give it a really clean look all the way across. Before we really do that, we have to do the math as well to make sure that we're gonna have like full deck boards and not just a tiny sliver on one side or the other. So I just measured the width of my deck from side to side. It's gonna be 86 inches. So we're gonna take that and divide that by the width of the deck board, which I know is 5.5 inches, plus that 1/4 inch gap. So it's gonna be, if I put that into decimals, 5.75, and then we have 14.95. So that means I'm 0.05, so 5/100ths of a spot off. With that calculated, now we're ready to start laying down our first deck board. The first piece that I need to put in is gonna be that square edge board to make sure that I don't have that groove going on the outside edge. Just gives a really nice appearance. I'm gonna go with what's called a picture frame border with 45 cuts at every corner. A couple more things to note here. You can see that at the very end, I'm running all of these boards along with only the one closest to that square edge board already cut. You'll see what this is all about closer to the end of the video. So before you start installing your boards, make sure that you have the ends cut off. They do have a rough cut edge right from the factory, but since I cut them all in half earlier, I know that I'm just using my cut in on one side, and I'll be cutting the other side at the very end to make sure the links of all those boards match up. From here, we're just using those hidden fasteners every time that our deck board crosses over one of our supports to both help secure the deck board and to keep the necessary 1/4 inch gap from one piece of Trex to the other. We are looking really good to fit the exact amount of deck boards. Okay, we are getting very, so we're almost done. We have 2 boards left to put up on the main part before we finish our picture frame board. And then we're gonna have to go ahead and cut those 2 to size so that I can fit the blade. And I'll show you exactly what I mean here soon. Another quick tip, I've been using a scrap piece of decking along with a hammer to make sure that all of my deck boards are snug against all those hidden fasteners that are already installed. Then I'll work my way from one end all the way to the other, putting in the hidden fasteners as I work my way down. All right, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna be moving on to the next part of this. For that, I have a straight edge here. It's just basically a scrap piece of oak wood with a 2x2 on it to make sure that everything stayed straight. I'm gonna be putting this in line with where I wanna cut, just far enough away that whenever I run my saw against it, the blade is gonna land right on the line that I actually wanna cut. So I'm gonna get this kind of in position. I'm gonna put my saw with the blade out over here to get that distance, and I'll match it on the other side and clamp it down in place. All right, let's get this square edge board down. I do have to use a different fastener for those. I have to use these right here. These are just gray, basically just color match metal tapping deck screws. So deck to metal, that's what I'm using in this case. And when you're fastening to the surface of any of these Trex deck boards, make sure that you're at least 1 inch away from the edge and 1 inch away from the end. Because of the way the frame was designed, I had to make some cutouts on some of these outer square edge boards. In a weird turn of events, I had to buy a $60 router bit so that I could bring that groove back to one side of that square edge board. And this is so I can use those hidden fasteners on 2 of the edges that run parallel to the deck boards. One more trim and we are totally done. That is it. I'll end this with a nice little drone shot so you can see what it looks like. But overall, this deck install was pretty easy. I still think metal framing is probably the way to go, but Trex is like easy choice, honestly. Unfortunately, I know that it can be prohibitively expensive, but if you can put it in your budget, I don't think you'll regret it. See you next week.